Hello everyone, it's Myeongkul. Today I am going to read 6005 Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Chapter 5, number 9430. Monsieur Mayer, what has happened to you? Said the nurse. A look of shock was on her face. Your hair is completely white. I looked in a mirror. It was true. My hair was white. The courtroom had been hard on me, but I had a more pressing concern, Fantine. How is Fantine? May I see her? I was led to Fantine's bedside. She was sinking fast. Her eyes opened and she greeted me warmly. I knew you were here, she said. I could see you in my sleep. And where is my Cosette? Why isn't she sitting on the bed waiting for me? You must keep calm, my child, I said. Your little girl is here. I was lying, but I wanted her to keep calm. Oh, please, she cried. Her eyes were bright and her hands were clasped. Won't someone bring her in? Not yet, I said. You have to rest first, said the doctor. He had come in to check on her. You still have a fever? Such excitement wouldn't be good for you. First, you must get well, I agreed. Then you can see your girl. I hoped my words would comfort her. I wanted her to sleep, then I could go and get Cosette, but my words made her more upset. I want to see my baby. How can you be so foolish? Let me see my Cosette, she begged. You see how quickly you get upset, said the doctor. As long as you're like that, I can't let you see your child. It's not enough to see her. You have to live for her. I held Fantine's hand. She seemed to be in another world. Her eyes were looking upward. I can hear her, she cried. It's my darling Cosette. I can hear her. She pointed over my shoulder. It's him. He's coming to get me. I turned to see who she pointed at. It was Javert. He had entered the room silently and was waiting for me. Fantine sat up in bed. Monsieur, Madeleine saved me. Then she fell back against the pillow. Her head hit the headboard. It sank limply against her shoulder. Her mouth was open, her eyes were sightless. She was dead. You have killed this woman, I said to Javert. Let's go, he ordered. We have wasted enough time, March. I will put the handcuffs on you. I set Fantine's head gently on the pillow. I tucked the head in her cap and closed her eyes. I kissed the hand that hung over the bed and laid it on top of the other one. I rose to my feet. I'm at your service, I said. Javert put me in the town lockup. He intended to take me to Toulon in the morning, but I had other plans. I broke a window bar and dropped down from the roof. I ran home and found my metal savings box. It had all my money in it. I wrapped the silver candlesticks in an old shirt. I buried both in the woods nearby. Then I fled to Paris, hoping to disappear in the great city. But the Paris police searched for me. They asked Javert to help them locate me. He was relentless. I was caught. My new number was 9430. Would I wear it as long as my first number? Was I doomed to labor in shackles in the prison at Toulon until my death? I had no answers to these questions, but there came a day when my life took another turn. This is how it happened. The warship Orion came to Toulon harbor to be repaired. I was one of a crew of a prisoner who was sent to help clean her hull. She was a big ship, and the crowds came out to watch. Suddenly, one of the seamen of the Orion fell from a topsail. During his fall, his hands got tangled on one of the sail's ropes. He was hundreds of feet above the sea. He hung like a stone in a sling. No one came to his rescue. He was wriggling and weakening. I knew he would soon drop into the sea. I made up my mind. I would try to rescue the seaman. I asked the officer on duty if he would break my ankle chain. I grabbed the rope and dashed up the rigging. As everybody watched, I raced across the outer part of the sail. I tied the rope to the sail and lowered myself to the seaman's level. Now, two of us hung above the sea. The seaman was getting tired. He would soon let go. Quickly, I tied the rope around his middle and climbed back up. I pulled the seaman up. He was carried to safety, but I was weak from the rescue. I staggered on the outer part of the sail. Then I fell into the sea. I wouldn't go back to the ship or to prison. I would take my chances in the water. As I fell, I heard the cry of the crowd. The next day, the paper reported my death. 17 November 1823. Yesterday, a convict working on the Rhine fell into the sea. He was drowned after rescuing a crew member. The body was not recovered. Man's number was blah blah. His name was Zhang Valjean. Chapter 6. Cosette. But drowning was not my fate. I had made a promise and I meant to keep it. I dug up my money and the candlesticks. I dressed as a poor man. No one would have known that the man walking the road to Montfaucon was once Monsieur Madeleine. The mayor, the Thénardiers inn was called. The sergeant of Waterloo. The sign over the door showed a soldier carrying another soldier on his back. I was nearing the inn where I saw a little girl. She was you, my dear Cosette. You were carrying a big bucket of water. You were only 8, but the Thénardiers worked you like a horse. The bucket of water was heavy. The small girl put it down every few steps and rested. Oh, God help me, please, dear God. She sobbed. I came up from behind and reached down for the handle. I didn't say a word. The girl looked up unafraid. She trusted me. Have you carried this far? I asked her. From the spring back there. Haven't your mother? I asked. I don't think I have had one. Child replied. The others have a mother, but I have not. What others? Madame Thénardier's children. She has 2 girls. Their names are Eponine and Zelma. And what do? They have lovely dolls, she replied. They play games all day. And what do you do? I work. Her eyes filled with tears. I haven't got many toys. Eponine and Zelma won't let me play with their dolls. We're almost at the inn door. Cosette asked me for the bucket. If Madame sees someone carrying it for me, she will beat me. I gave her the bucket and we entered the noisy inn. Madame Thénardier came to the door, carrying a candle. She was a big woman. Her features were coarse. She looked as though she rarely smiled. So there you are. You're good for nothing, she said to Cosette. You have taken your time again. I guess you're fooling around as usual. Madame, said Cosette, trembling, here is a gentleman who wants a room for the night. Madame Thénardier thought I was a beggar without any money. The rooms are full, she said. You can put me where you like, I offered. I'm in the hay loft or the stable. I'll pay the same price as for a man. Very well, 40 francs, she said. The price was too high, but I agreed. I put my bundle and my walking stick on a bench and sat down. Cosette brought me wine and glass. She crawled under a table on the other side of the room. Cosette knit and chewed her lower lip. She watched the sisters play with their dolls near the fireplace. She was a plain child. She'd have been pretty if she were happy. Too much work and too little food had made her thin and pale. Large blue eyes had deep shadows under them. Her dress was a rag, hardly warm enough for summer, let alone winter. She looked like a shivering, frightened rabbit. Cosette called Madame Thénardier. Cosette had forgotten to buy bread. He wanted her money back. Cosette stuffed her hand into her apron pocket. Her face fell. The coin was gone. She had lost it. So you have lost it, have you? Are you trying to steal it? Madame Thénardier reached for the strap hanging on the chimney. She raised it above Cosette's head. Please, madame, please, cried the frightened girl. I took a coin from my vast pocket. No one saw me put it on the floor. Pardon me, madame. The coin rolled onto my table. It must have fallen from the child's pocket. Madame Thénardier snatched the money from my hand. She put it in her pocket and glared at Cosette. Cosette ran back under the table. She sent me a look of thanks. I seen a doll in a store window on my way into town. It was bigger and much more beautiful than the one the sisters were playing with. I left the inn and went to the store. I bought the doll for Cosette. Here, it's for you, I said, holding it out to her. Cosette was dazzled. The doll had a beautiful pink dress. Cosette's face was like the burst of sunshine. Madame Thénardier, Eponine, and Esma stared like statues. The room was silent. Madame Thénardier might have been thinking, who is this man? Is he a beggar? What, a millionaire? Or worse, is he a criminal? Is it true, monsieur? Is the lady really mine? The poor child brought me close to tear. I could only nod and put the doll into her hand. I'll call her Catherine, she said. Cosette played with the doll until her bedtime. She went to sleep in a torn dress to keep warm. I was up early the next morning. Madame Thénardier handed me my bill. It was high, but I paid it without a word. I had other things on my mind. We have so many expenses, monsieur, said Madame Thénardier. She has seen the look I gave the bill. There's a child. You saw her last night. She cost a pretty penny to keep. And my own daughters to consider. Suppose I took her off your hands, I said. What? Why, monsieur, my dear monsieur, take her? Face was red with excitement. Take away, take care of her spoiled hand. May you be blessed. But Monsieur Thénardier wasn't so pleased. He was listening from the hall. He didn't want to let the child go. I can't allow it, he said, entering the room. Is it true that she costs money and that we are not rich? I had to pay over 400 francs for one of her illnesses. Need to see her running about the place. Monsieur Thénardier took 1,500 francs for Cosette. I gave the child a bundle of warm clothes that I had brought for her. She came downstairs dressed all in black. She carried a doll in one hand and took my hand. With the other, we left the inn. We hadn't gone far down the road when the innkeeper caught up with us. I can't let you take the child without permission from her mother. Give her back to me. He wanted more money, but I had a surprise for him. I had Fantine's letter. Then Nadia recognized her writing. So he demanded more money. I reached for Cosette with one hand and gripped my heavy walking stick with the other. Then I didn't stay to see what I could do with it. Cause and I turned and walked toward our future. Chapter 7, Night Hunt. Cosette and I moved into an apartment in the poorest part of Paris. Few people lived in a rundown building. It was perfect for us. No one would ever find us here. We lived a quiet life. For the first time in her young life, Cosette could play and forget about work. How I came to love my Cosette. I had never loved anything or anyone before. I had never been a father, a lover, a husband, or even a friend. Cosette's love gave me hope. She became my daughter, and I became her father. Sometimes I thought my heart would burst with tenderness. Weeks passed. I was content. In the morning, I taught Cosette how to read. In the afternoon, she played with her doll. I loved to watch her. We couldn't risk going out during the day, so we took our walks in the evening. I still dressed like a poor man. That's what people thought I was. They didn't know I had my money sewn into the lining of my coat. I could get it to it whenever I needed it. Each evening, I gave a coin to a beggar sitting by a church. Something happened that changed our life. The beggar sat on the sidewalk as usual. I dropped the coin into his open palm. He looked up for a moment, then quickly bowed his head. I thought I saw the face of a man I never wanted to see again, Javert. But surely the street lamp was playing tricks with my eye at home. I couldn't get the beggar out of my mind and needed to speak to him. Maybe I would know for sure if it was Javert. When I gave my coin, I spoke. Good evening, old man, I said, dropping a coin into his palm. Thank you, kind sir. Belfast stared up at me. It wasn't Javert after all. My eyes had been playing tricks on me. A few nights later, I held the front door open. I was usually looked at the time. I sent Cosette to her room and told her to be quiet. A man was climbing the stair. I blew out my candle and sat on a chair. The man stopped outside my door. I held my breath. He had a candle. A gleam of light shone under my door. The man walked down the hall. Closed the door. I threw myself on my bed and didn't shut my eyes all night. At daybreak, the same door opened. I knelt to peer through my keyhole. I couldn't see the man's face. His outline told me all I needed to know. It was Javert. At dusk that same day, Cosette and Feld left her apartment. The moon was full. We ran down a street and turned to run back up. In this way, I hoped Javert would lose our trail. Cosette stayed close. She didn't ask questions. I didn't know where I was going. I was trusting God as Cosette was trusting me. Were we being followed? I didn't know. Did Javert know that I was Jean Valjean? I didn't know that either. I only knew I didn't want to stay around to find out. We passed the church. Its bell chimed 11 o'clock. We passed the police station. 3 men stood outside. As we passed, one went inside. We ducked down a side street and hid in a doorway. The man who had gone inside came out with a fourth man. The moon lit their faces. The new man was Javert. We left the doorway and ran to a small bridge. By now, Cosette was tired. I carried her across and then looked back. The fourth men were hurrying across the bridge. We ran down a lane between stone walls. After only a few hours, the lane forked. I chose the right fork because it led away from the city. I could hear Javert and his men running behind us. Suddenly, the lane ended with a stone wall. We couldn't go forward and we couldn't go back. Javert's men were closing in on us. There was only one way to go, up. I had been a strong climber in prison. I escaped 3 times while climbing stone walls, with only my bare hands and feet. But Cosette couldn't climb the wall by herself. I wouldn't make it up the wall with her on my back. I'm frightened, father. Who's that coming? I put Cosette down. It's Madame Thénardier, I lied. I watched Cosette do as I told her. Don't talk. Leave everything to me. If you make a sound, she will hear you. She wants you back. To climb the wall with Cosette, I needed a rope, but where could I get one quickly? The street lamp. Each lamp in Paris was raised and lowered by a rope. Without another word, I raced to the street lamp at the end of the alley, took the coil of rope, and hurried back to Cosette. There was no time to lose. Took off my scarf and looped one end under Cosette's arms. I tied the other end to my rope. Then I took off my shoes, socks, and threw them over the wall. I was on top of the wall in half a minute. Cosette stared up at me amazed. She was frozen into silence by the thought of Madame Thénardier. I pulled Cosette to the top and put her on my back. I held both her hands in one of mine. Then I crawled on my stomach along the top of the wall. We came to the roof of a small building. Sat onto the roof. I slid onto the roof without letting go of the wall. Javert was running down the lane, shouting, "Search the dead end. He won't escape me this time." The police raced to the end of the lane. I let go and coasted down the roof with Cosette still on my back. Trees stopped us from dropping to the ground. We climbed down. We were in the garden above the convent. An old gardener was bent over his roses. "Here's 100 francs. Please let us stay the night." The moonlight shone on my face. "Why, it's you, Monsieur Madeleine. Don't you remember me? It was Fauchelevent, the man I had rescued from under the horsecraft years before." Chapter 8. Meeting Marius. I had saved the Fauchelevent once. Now he saved me. He said I was his brother. The nuns gave me a job as his helper. Javin spent months looking for me, but he never searched the convent in time. He gave up looking. Cosette joined the convent school and lived with the other girls. I visited her each day. We spent many peaceful years together this way. I would have been happy if Cosette had wanted to become a nun, and I was just safe in the convent and I could live out my life in peace behind its walls. But Cosette needed to see the outside world. When she finished school, we moved back into the city. I bought a house near the public garden. Every day we walked along the same path. Every day we sat on the same bench. One day I noticed a young man in the garden. He was handsome, with black hair. His clothes were shabby. I guessed he was a student. From then on, he was always in the garden when we were. We passed one another each day, but never spoke. The next year, the young man began to change. He dressed better. He sat on a bench close to ours. He gazed shyly at Cosette. When I saw Cosette return his gaze, I was upset. She was interested in him also. I wanted my life with Cosette to go on forever. She was the only happiness I had ever known. I moved us to a new house. The walks in the garden stopped. Cosette never said a word about the move. She missed our walks, and I knew she missed the young man. There was a kind of sadness in her now. Our life together was not as it once was. But one day things changed. The young man who'd been out of our lives months came back. I was standing outside the church one winter morning. A girl handed me a note from her father. Fabanto was an actor out of work. He asked me for money, also asked me to come to his home. He wanted me to see how far he had fallen. I knew the address was same building Cosette and I had lived in years ago. I said I would be there that afternoon. I was nervous. Cosette and I had run from the old building with Javert on a hill. I never wanted to see the place again, but I had given my word. The small bony man, he had the sharp stare of a weasel. Where had I seen his face before? "Please come in, my dear," he said. "Please enter with your charming young lady." Found out later that Marius, the young man from the garden, lived next door. He was peering at us through a hole. He knew things about Fabantou that I was yet to learn. No doubt Marius was just shocked to see us, but here we are, the older gentleman and the girl he lost a month ago. There she was before his eye. The room was like a cave, dark and cold. Fabant, his wife, was in bed with a cold. A girl sat on the floor by the bed. Her wrist was bleeding, was wrapped in a piece of tonsure. These were truly the miserable, the outcast, the underdog. They were as I had been during my prison day. We were people that life destroyed. Here are blankets and woolens. I put a bundle on the table. Fabant asked me how he had signed this letter. It was signed Fabantu, the dramatic artist. I replied, this wicked man used many different names. He wrote letters asking for money. He had a different story to go with each name. You see how we live, monsieur? Then I'm around the room as he spoke. Only rag of clothing I owe is this torn shirt of my wife's. I can't go out to look for work because I have no coat. Put off my overcoat and laid it across the back of a broken chair. I gave him 5 francs. That's all the money I have on me, but I will be back at 6 with the 60 francs for your rent. Cosette and I laughed. We didn't know that Marius ran after us. Stood in the street, watched the girl. And Fabantu, I didn't know it then. Fabantu was just setting a trap for me. I had to walk freely into that trap, but barely escaped with my life. Chapter 9, Trapped. I was back at 6 o'clock with the money. Cosette was safe at home. Fabantu greeted me, wearing my overcoat and smiling meekly. I put 80 francs on the table for your rent and other immediate needs, Monsieur Fabantu. We will talk about what else you need. May God reward you, most generous sir. He snatched the money off the table. Sat down. How is her child? Not well. She is in great pain. Her sister took her to the hospital. She was standing on the door with her arms crossed. She looked as if she wouldn't let me leave if I wanted to. Oh, she's very sick. But you had never know it. She's so brave. She's more than a woman. She's an ox. Madame Fabantu was pleased by her husband's words. You always say the nicest things to me, Monsieur Jondrette. She smiled a shy smile. Jondrette, I thought your name was Fabantu. It's both. Jondrette is my stage name. I was beginning to see that things were not as they seemed. Then I noticed 2 men in the shadow. Who are those men? I asked. Pay no attention to them. They are just neighbor. That was to say my most noble patron. I have a picture for sale. On the bed, the men's faces were covered in soot. Don't worry about them. They are the funniest men. They have dirty faces because they do dirty work. So I was just saying, I want to show you a valuable picture. Turned around the picture that had been facing the wall, like from the candle shown on it. What on earth is it? The masterpiece. I cherish this picture as much as my own daughter. For to sell it, what do you think it's worth? It's an old inn sign. Said it's worth about 3 francs. The paint was chipped and peeling, but I knew the sign. The sergeant of a wallow in faint letter. Underneath the letter was a picture of a soldier killing another soldier on his back. It was hard to believe the man before me could be the innkeeper, the man called the Thénardier. I will accept 1,000 francs for this sign, he said. I was caught in a trap. Escape wouldn't be easy. I won't accept 1 franc less. I hope you have your wallet on you. The man grinned wickedly. I rose from my chair and stood with my back to the wall. I looked around the room. Then I just stood near the window with the 2 of the 4 men. His wife stood near the door with the other 2. The trap was a tight one. Suddenly, Thénardier jumped at me. His eyes were blazing with anger. His fists were clenched. Don't you know me? He screamed. Don't you recognize me? No, I replied calmly. Door swung open. 3 more men entered wearing black masks. One carried a heavy stick. The other had a butcher's axe. Is everything ready? Thénardier asked them. Yes. Kim then thrust his face into mine. Don't you recognize my name? Isn't Fabantu Jondrette? My name is Thénardier. Recognize me now? No more than before. Nothing I needed to buy time. Your goose is cooked, my noble patron. Spat out the words. Just spit it and roast it, my fine bird. He started to pace the room. You don't know me, eh? It wasn't you who came to my inn at the Montfaucon 10 years ago and took Fantine's breath from me. So you don't know me well. I know you, all right? I knew you the minute you shoved your noble face inside my door. You'll not get away from me, my generous millionaire. It isn't smart to take a man's servant. I'll teach you not to threaten me with a heavy stick. You were the strong one that day. Today it's my turn. I hold the cards now. And you're done for, my beauty. Thénardier stopped. He was out of breath. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a poor man. I don't know you. You're confusing me with someone else. Have you anything to say before we go to work on you? I said nothing. What was the point? The big man with the axe took his mask. If there is any chopping to be done, I'm your man. Dinner shouted at the man for showing his face. I ran for the window. I was nearly out. But 3 men lunged at me. 6 hands pulled me back inside. I knocked down 2 of the men, but 2 more took their place. I was buried under a flood of a fist. Don't hurt him, shouted Thénardier. I want to talk to this gentleman. I was shoved into a chair. I find it strange. You haven't shouted for help at once. Not even with the window open, I wonder. Are you as afraid of calling down the law as we are? I said nothing. We can help each other. I'm not a bloodsucker. All I want is 200,000 francs. You don't have it with you, but you can write your daughter for it. He turned to get paper and pen. Yeah, Paulette, I cried. My own life is not worth much. You can do what you want with me. Look. I pulled up my left sleeve. I pressed the poker to my bare skin. There was a hiss of burning flesh. I don't fear you. I threw the poker through the open window. Do what you like with me, I said. Slit his throat. Like the idea, he picked up a knife from the table and started toward me. Thénardier was almost upon me when suddenly his wife cried out, "Look at this!" How did this get here? Through the open window, Oliphant. That's right. I saw it go by. Thénardier unfolded a note. He read it by candle. It's Apolline's handwriting, by God. Adoro writes, "The police are here. We better clear out. We'll leave the mouse in its trap." But the mouse had dashed. I slipped through the window while everyone was busy with the note. I disappeared just as Javert opened the front door. Thénardier and his gang were caught in their own trap. Later I would learn how Marius saved my life. He had gone to the police that afternoon after overhearing Thénardier bragging to his wife about the trap he had set for me. Éponine had printed the note for him that very morning to prove that she could write. When it looked as though Thénardier was going to kill me, Marius tossed the note through the hall. I ran to my house on Rue de Plumet. House was protected by a stone wall. Cosette and the housekeeper lived there. I lived in a small cottage in the garden. The next day I was sick with a fever from the burn on my wall. Cosette nursed me with care. Every day she brought me food, and every day she read to me. I loved the books about trouble. Cosette didn't ask me how I got the bun. She knew from my years of secret when not to ask questions. The life would return to the way it had been. Memories of the young man in the garden would grow dim with time. How happy I was at this thought. I felt reborn, but things were not going to be like before. Everything was changing. Winter was giving birth to spring, and new ways were replacing the old. I want you to walk in our garden, said Cosette one April morning. You never go there. I will, father. Spring is such a wonderful time. She was happy again, and so was I. I took my walks at night. That was the only time I felt safe enough to go into the street. Just the same, I dressed as a workman. I felt even safer in my disguise. One night I saw Thénardier in the street. He wasn't in prison after all. What was worse, the family lived in a part of the city too close for comfort. I told Cosette we were moving. She grew sad. Her happiness of the last few weeks vanished. The garden had been good for her, but not for the reason I thought. In the morning I found an address scratched on the stone wall. The letters were fresh. They read, "This must be that young man's address," I thought. "He's seeking Cosette behind my back, and he knows we are moving, so he gives her his address." Lovers met in the garden. They greeted one another with such joy. Now I knew why Cosette was so happy. She had been meeting her lover every night. I discovered later that Thénardier's daughter, Éponine, knew the streets of Paris well. She had found a place and told Marius. We couldn't move somewhere else in the city. We had to leave the country. We would move to England. Chapter 10. At the barricade, in that year of 1832, there was unrest in every quarter of Paris. People were speaking against the government. Students were planning revolution. It was rumored that the popular leader, General Lamarck, was near death. He was the only man in the government who cared about the poor. When he died, Paris would explode. Cosette and I would spend one last week at our apartment in Paris, then we would board a ship and sail for England. Cosette said she didn't want to leave France. Still, she helped me pack our few belongings. Then General Lamarck died. His funeral procession made its way through the streets of Paris. The spark was struck. The powder keg was set to blow. And the evening of that same day, I wandered back to the house on Rue Plumet. I wanted to take a last walk in our garden. A street boy called to me. He had a note for Cosette. It was from a lover. I opened it and read it. will not agree to our marriage. We have no money, so we cannot be together. Gone to the barricades to die for the revolution. When you read this, my soul will be very near and smiling at you. Remember me, I love you, Marius. So my new enemy will soon be dead. I didn't have to do a thing, and here it began from my life. I put the letter in my pocket. I didn't want Cosette to know where Marius was, but my heart was heavy. Now I knew how much they loved each other. Though they couldn't marry, their hearts would always be one. From the date on the letter, I saw that Marius intended Cosette to read it the next morning. There was still time. I changed into my old National Guard uniform, left the house fully armed, headed for the Marius's barricade. How could I know that I would meet two enemies there? One enemy wanted my daughter, the other wanted my freedom. Javert was at the barricade. A path would cross once more. The barricade was enormous, 3 stories high, 700 feet long, built in front of an inn, blocked the entrance to 3 street. Anything and everything went into building. The barricade, doors, the screen, broken window, bedroom furniture, stoves. Whatever was hidden behind the barricade, young men with guns waited for the king's soldiers to come down the street. I got there at dawn just as men with the families were being sent home. There must be no unnecessary deaths. Mario was saying those men with wives and children must leave at once. In another 15 minutes, it'll be too late. Soldiers will be here. I offered to stay and fight. Citizen, you're most welcome. But we're about to die. I said nothing. I had faced death many times in my life. Suddenly there was the sound of a trumpet. The barricade was under attack. On guard, cried Marius from the top of the barricade. Another man on the barricade shouted, when there are no more kings, there will be no more war. Heads down and get back to the wall, shouted Enjolras. All of you down on your knees. Soldiers were fighting at the barricade. While the barricade was being hit with a bullet, we were cloaked in a cloud of smoke. I was certain Marius would be the first one shot. He was standing in the line of fire. He didn't seem interested in protecting himself. A soldier was posted on the roof nearby. He could see straight into our stronghold. I took aim with my musket and fired. I struck the soldier's helmet. It clattered into the street, and the soldier ran off. Why did you fire at the helmet and not at the man? I said nothing. Killing wasn't as easy for me as it seemed to be for those young men. A spy was tied up in the inn. Ehonna told me to go and check up on him. Entered the inn. So here we are. Spy turned to me. I knew the man. It was Javert. He asked for a drink. I held the glass to his lip. Came in and put a gun on the table. I haven't forgotten you, he said to Javert. He turned to me. The last man to leave this place will blow out the spy's brains. May I be that man? I asked. All right. You can have the sky. I picked up the gun. Javert's eyes were upon me. I released him from the post, and we left the inn. His hands were tied behind his back, so I helped him over the barricade. We walked down an alley. Take your revenge, said Javert when we stopped walking. Took a knife out of my pocket. A knife to the heart? You're right. That's your style. I cut the ropes on Javert's wrist. You're free to go. Javert was too stunned to speak. He stared at me open-mouthed. I probably won't leave here alive. I said, but if I do, you can find me at number 7. I lived there under the name of the Fresh 11, not go. After a few steps, Javert turned. I would rather you kill me. Clear out, I cried. When he was gone, I fired the gun into the air. I went back to the barricade and reported, the spy is dead. But Marius wasn't at his post. He was lying on the pavement. A bullet was in his shoulder. He looked dead, but he was still breathing. King's soldiers would soon be on the barricade. I had to get Marius to safety. The end.